What's up everyone, how's it going? Welcome to today's market analysis slash trade recap episode. Today is Friday, June the 27th, and we were not active in the session here today, so we will be analyzing the whole day's price action from, I marked the wrong story, but we'll be analyzing the whole day's price action from 8:30 to 10:30 a.m. So this cube. So we're going to see if there was any potential longs or retracement of those longs that we could have taken likely, and see what we could have done to potentially take a trade today. But remember, taking a trade is not always a goal. The goal should be to execute your system and process on a day-to-day basis. So let's go ahead and check out the news that we had for today. So I think you guys can see my other screen now, and today we did not have much news at all. We just had UOM news at 9 a.m., which a 5-minute interval should do the job. So I'll just go ahead and mark out that 5-minute interval, or I don't even think that's necessary since we're analyzing the market, but we'll go ahead and mark that 5-minute interval. I mean, we don't need to, that's what I meant to say. Okay, so now that we know we only had UOM news, which is not that crazy high impact, we can start right away with our technicals and continue the volume analysis and much more. So what I do want to mark out though is when market open, so right there. And let's mark everything beforehand, including all our liquidity levels and much more. This is my first time seeing today's price action, so I'm literally going through this at the same exact time. That's why this video may be longer, but since you don't have trades to recap, I'm just going to analyze and see what we could have caught, if we can catch anything with our system. So I'm just marking out the different zones and levels which I see. Of course they're going to have to be validated using volume profile and maybe even footprint. Seeing a 4-hour price move up. Also keep in mind that after we had broken through certain liquidity level here or so, once we had broken above that level, then it was an imbalance above area in which price just continued to skyrocket up until our next level is what I remember seeing, but we'll check out that again as well. Yeah, we're just marking through all of this, just seeing what we can do to ensure. Hope you guys are seeing the right screen. You guys are perfect. Alright. Just marking out these levels. Okay, let's mark out that as well. This is a good 4-hour as well. Up to those levels. Let's go on 3 hours, see if we notice anything there. No levels there. This entire area seems to be a seller imbalance, and because it was such a seller imbalance with decently low volume, and you can validate the low volume because if you just mark out a volume profile of that area, you can simply see that after we break through these lows and above these highs, this entire area has the least amount of volume, primarily aggressive sellers in the market. So once we had once you have broken above these highs and buyer aggression was continuing, it's very easy for price to head up till these 4 hours. So that's what this was a level. So we'll mark it yellow for now, just not yellow. Yellow you can barely see. Let's mark it not purple. Let's mark it blue, just so you guys can see it. I'll make it a solid line as well. Once you had broken above this blue level, it should have been very easy for price to continue and head all the way up here. Or if not up there, potentially this area and above, this entire relative area. Not seeing much else. I'm just trying to use as much as I can to make solid plays, but yeah, there's nothing much to even be seen there. Potentially this could be considered a 1 hour, but I'm not too favorable of it. Like, you can just do this and see. Yeah, that was the area where volume was. We'll mark it out just to be on the safer side of things. And if that was the case, then the imbalance could have been above, but on a higher time frame, this is the imbalance above area. Yeah, look at that. But we do have a tiny high volume node right here. Now let's go back to where we're at in the present. And as you can see, it actually did seem to play out very nicely. Once he broke above these area, buyer aggression was able to continue and continue its strength. And that strength continued relatively until these 1 hour area. Because at that 1 hour area, what you see is that we have this wick candle here. That's telling us that buyer aggression was able to continue until this 1 hour. We came back, saw some buyer weakness, then likely sellers were unable to continue. Buyers continued to push up. As you can see, they pushed up until this relative area. So we gotta take out this 1 hour now. I'm just marking it for analysis purposes, but we see that occur. But relatively here, not seeing anything on 3 hour, 2 hour. We do have a 2 hour demand zone here. Okay, I don't know why I locked that, but there we go. Ooh, this is very, very good, looking in hindsight at least. We have liquidity here. Price came down towards that area, and then we saw a big look back towards the upside. Two-hour. You can mark that as well. It's not gonna hurt to do so. And these are all gonna be 1 hours. Do you want to mark that? Nah. I'm thinking like as if we were actually in the market. Because we saw that price went all the way down here, we do want to mark this as main liquidity, but that's looking in hindsight, and I do not want to trade as if we're looking in hindsight. I want to trade as if we're doing this in real time, right? Because you don't want to look at everything in hindsight, because that won't make you learn, and that won't make you refine your systems and processes. But we do have a 1 hour there. More liquidity there. And we do see that 1 hour also play out pretty nicely. And here later in hindsight we do see that, but all of that is after a market session, so we would not even be able to use any of that anyways. 30-minute. Then we see this 1 hour get broken. Go ahead and remove that. We see this 1 hour get broken, but we see large amounts of volume get transacted at the area, and you can notice this because what time was that? That was at 8:30, right at market open. And what you notice is that at these lows we had heavy seller volume. No, we did not. Oh yeah, we'll go into that later, but what we essentially see is that this liquidity got swept from that area. We don't know what happened there. We may be able to notice that level on Bookmap, but something would have happened there in which price went to that area, sellers were unable to push below, and then buyers came in aggressively from that area. 15-minute. Not seeing much again. Nothing. Then we're on the 5-minute. So I'm gonna remove this 1 hour zone at least, but we'll keep the liquidity just so we knew that just so we know that it's there. And then that's the entire charting for ES. But one thing we'll do additional to that is that we will go ahead and mark out the volume profile. And you gotta start from the 30-minute just so we don't get market open time. Just place it there, get onto the 4 hour. So what we see happening is that volume is towards the downside, but if we extend this more towards where our highs are at, we see that volume is distributed throughout this entire range. So price wants to navigate and stay towards this entire range. Once we had broken out of this area, it was much easier for price to just continue heading up, and it was easy to get past this low volume node. But nothing really gained there using the volume profile. The footprint volume will definitely get us way more information on our levels. So that's where we go on to the 1 hour on the footprint, as you can see here, and just double check our different levels. So this level is 515-ish. We'll go on to the 1 hour just so you can see exactly where it's at. This level right here. And yeah, this level is okay. The only thing is that there's not much volume at this area. 7k volume versus market versus 8 AM 105k volume. That's two very different things. That's why I would actually mark this area as more of an important area, because here on the 1 hour we're seeing a large amount of volume actually get transacted here near the bottom. And with that volume, what we're seeing is that there was, okay, first of all, majority of the volume is there. Second of all, majority of the delta in that volume space was selling delta. So lots of aggressive sellers came down at this level. They were trying to continue to push down this area. They were just fighting and fighting and fighting. But they were unable to push through. There was essentially a brick wall of passive buyers standing there that was unable to push, these sellers were unable to push through. And because of that, they likely had no more fuel. They likely got exhausted and absorbed, which resulted in buyers being able to come in, push price higher, because those sellers essentially got exhausted, allowing these buyers to come in. And as all these sellers exit their position, that only helps price move up quicker. Because think about it, when a seller has to close its position, what do they have to do? They have to buy into the position. In futures, if you short and you want to quickly get out, what do you have to do? You have to click the buy button. It simply cancels the order out. And that's essentially what likely happened here at this area. So this area is very, very important. Right here at 8 AM. Now let's see this area 23. We know where it is. And here at this area we do see volume, but it's not too significant. It's just standard liquidity at that area. I would not be too considerate as to what is going on here. So we're going to remove that for market analysis purposes. Then we also have this level here. And this level I wouldn't mind placing this as a liquidity level. The reason for that is we're seeing absorption here at the bottom, and whenever we see absorption at a liquidity level, I do like to sustain them as liquidity. Now if you go back to our main liquidity level, you can see why it's much more significant, right? This area, this liquidity dip which we marked out, 4K in volume for that relative area, and if you mark out both the candles, 9K in total volume for these two candles. But now if we mark out this liquidity there, what we see happening is that there's 50 and 200K between those two candles and 50K in our actual volume candle. We're seeing way more volume being distributed here at the bottom. This volume is very, very significant. We're seeing 250K in volume between these two compared to 9K for this liquidity level. When we have a level of significance with that much volume, it just and heightens the importance of such level. And that's why this area is very, very significant, and that's why this area is the only 8 plus level that we're seeing for the day. But this could also be if we keep the volume. If this was there with 250K, this would be even better than the first one. But we see both with volume, and it looks like both of those would have gotten swept. That is what resulted in the movement. And now let's just go to the 2 hour just to not skim out an analysis. And what we see there is lots of volume as well. And at these high volume nodes, price can come in reverse. And we see 150K in volume, more than enough for it to be valid. But there's our validation of our different zones and levels. That's why they have been valid. We see price come in, take this out, sweep above with absorption, price went up. That's essentially how the day is going to be structured here today. It's already been 17 minutes and we haven't even gone into the different minutes within the market to actually find our setups. 17 minutes that we did right now is all for pre-market analysis and to build up our game plan. But let's do the same thing pretty quickly on NQ. I'm not trying to take too long on NQ. This should be done within a few minutes. 8:30, there we go. 4 hour. We'll go ahead and mark out these highs just so we know where they're sitting at. For hour. Main liquidity. Main liquidity. Main liquidity. It's good to do these things slowly, but I'm used to the pace, so I still understand. But the more slow you go, the more you'll be able to actually sink in the information that you're getting for it, because that's the most important thing. You can have so many levels, but the important thing is that you understand these levels and understand the actual significance behind these levels. Seeing all of that occur. It's like mean. I'll mark that as mean as well. 4 hour and 3 hour tend to be our main liquidity areas, because for them to show up on these higher time frames, they need to be pretty significant. I'm not gonna mark that. That's very deviated from price. And see, there's that 1 hour again that we found but was not significant when we simply used what we saw on Orderflow, the footprint chart. But yeah, there's that. Let's go on the 4 hour and head back to our past data. And we do see that we're in a very, very big and wide 4 hour zone. But I don't want to mark it out, because if you marked it out, it would look something like that, and that's huge. It's massive. Just keep that in the back of our heads because it's massive, which is telling us that there's likely volume deviated within that entire range. And this zone which I just marked out is it's a very good zone, and you can see why it's so good, and I'll explain that to you in a minute. But here's the overall thing. Here's the explanation. We made our zone, and then very soon after we came back into that zone, saw instant rejection with the wick, and then that area got created liquidity as well. So when there's liquidity inside of a zone, that makes the zone more important. Yeah, there we go. There's our closer zone that we see. Mark out the wick as well on it, because if it's not too big, we can typically mark out the wick, especially if it's very far away from where current price is, from where time is. It's not here. How do I know? I don't know how to say this. It was a long time back. Simply when these levels are a long time back, marking the wick only does us more good than bad. That's why we mark out such. And that zone got created after we swept liquidity, also making that zone more significant. Leave that there. But we have much more levels on NQ regarding our zones and liquidity above than we do on ES, which is always a plus. And it's a plus because we don't have much on ES. So having that additional amount of data that we can use only makes our job much easier. I'm seeing there. Alright. Ooh, this is honestly very great. This 2 hour that we marked out, that was very significant. Look at how nicely it held throughout the day. Mm, 30-minute, I'm not seeing too much. Nah, nothing else can mark on 30-minute. 15-minute, nothing else. This would be a 15-minute zone, and since there's liquidity at that zone, I will mark it out. -15-minute. Essentially, the reason we mark out these levels, guys, is because they give us an idea as to where Bookmap liquidity may be placed. If Bookmap liquidity is placed near one of these levels, we can essentially assume that these levels are going to be important for us to play with, and price may make a reaction like such. But yeah, nothing much else on the 15-minute either. Maybe 15-minute zone there, but what time is that? We'll mark it out, but I don't know if we're gonna use it or not. 15-minute. So there we go. I'm gonna take a quick break off camera to go drink some water and stuff like that, but then we'll come back into this very quickly. And it will be like I didn't take a break at all. I'll just count down and I'll be back. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm back. Alright. So let's start going every 5 minutes using Bookmap and more. So So sorry if you heard that was my sister, but we see that what happened after market open, like what we can use getting into market open, is simply that we came down into this level right around market open, and now our job is to essentially see how we react around this relative level, around VWAP, and on NQ it's gonna be this zone and this main liquidity level as well. So we're seeing how we're gonna react with price, and we'll get more of a precise area as to where this liquidity might be when we take advantage of Bookmap. And we have Bookmap over here with the tape, but realistically we're not going to use the tape, so I'll go ahead and move my Bookmap here. So you can see the Bookmap now, and this is right at market open. And what we see happening here is that around this 6200 level, we do have decent size area, but what looks to be more significant to me is this 6195 area. I just want to see how price reacts right at market open, and we'll go on the 5-minute because now we can get towards those significant areas. And prior to market open, we've just been coming down towards the level. Now we've been just revolving around that level. We've been coming down. Now we're revolving around that level. Market open, we have increased volatility, and we're between these two levels. So now we got to see how price reacts at the area. And what we see happening is that price is able to put, like, we see lots of aggressive selling come in here, and you can see that through these bubbles. And you can also see that here as well. So at the top of this candle, we actually saw very aggressive selling come in at the top, but the selling is unable to get rewarded. We're seeing heavy selling try to get in, but buyers being able to break through that. That's pretty aggressive buying. And prior to market open, we're seeing aggressive selling trying to push down lower, but price is unable to do so. Potential absorption at that point, but we still don't have a solid idea. So it's better to wait for that expansion. And as we move forward to 950, what we see happening is that price goes up, comes down, just is revolving around these two passive. It's revolving around the spread of liquidity close to us. So I'm gonna X out all of this, right? And just gonna take advantage of the barriers. So what we see happening is that around the 6206 level, we're having 233 passive buy orders. At that area, it's showing me that price may want to move higher, and this is confirmation of that. Because passive participants are moving their passive orders up with price, that's showing me that it's likely that price may want to head higher. But who knows if I'll head down to this area and then continue going up. If price is able to get down to this area and we see absorption, I'll be more than happy to take a long, targeting these 6220 levels. But let's see what happens. As you can see, we are not seeing any of that. We just have a big cloud of passive participants where price is sitting at, which is continuing to move the price upwards, and we're seeing that occur. Just continual upside, volume distributed typically at the upside of these candles, but aggressive buying is able to push through. Now we're at this time. Now we're actually seeing selling come in, but with all these passive buyers, this big cloud of passive buyers, it's not really reasonable that sellers will break through all the way unless they're coming in with strength. If they're able to break through, that shows us that sellers are coming in with large strength, which may reverse the market. But as you can see, they're just coming into this area without getting rewarded, putting up large volume but unable to get rewarded. As you can see, the next candle we push up. And then now is where things start to get much better regarding trading conditions. From these last few days, what we've seen happen is that after when it turns 9 a.m., right away at that 9 a.m. time, the spread of liquidity starts to get cleared out. We don't see this big cloud of liquidity anymore. That's what we've been seeing throughout this entire week, and that could be because there's news at 9 a.m. typically, but you can keep that in mind. So here's the 9 a.m. news, and we see that it likely came out positive, but I'm gonna double check that on Forex Factory just so we are sure. UOM. It was essentially expected. Nothing was necessarily better than expected or anything like such, but around that news time, price went up, and now it went to that 6225 area, which is all the way up here, which is pretty nice. At that 6225 level, okay, I think the stream guy is adjusting the stream so it's easier to see. Let me let him adjust everything. Let's just skip through that point where he's adjusting. I'm not trying to see all that. Alright, there we go. And now, whoa, now we might have a setup on our hands. Price comes up, takes this liquidity, right? And we don't know if there's absorption at that level, because if there is absorption at that level, it may cut us down, but that is around 9:15ish. And what we're seeing here, we're not seeing any absorption necessarily. We're seeing large amounts of volume being distributed, but we're seeing aggressive selling start to come in. Now, sure, selling can be aggressive, but I want to see how this selling actually gets rewarded and how selling actually reacts at this area where we're sitting at right now, around 6225-ish. So let's see what happens here. And it looks like we don't even make a reaction and sellers are able to just push down through it. Not necessarily a bad thing, but then once we broke through, bears are continuing to defend. And then we see a reaction occur from 6225 area, which is down there, but looking in hindsight, we do break below. And yeah, none of that is significant enough to help estimate, and now we see passive selling start to come in right above price, which will push the market down lower. And that's exactly what we've seen happen here. So now sellers may actually start to come in with strength. Yeah, selling is coming in pretty strong. If everything went right here, potential reversal play there. But if I was to take a reversal play, I would need some level to validate that. And here we have no level on our charts to actually validate such thing. But on NQ though, what we are seeing is that we did head into our 2-hour zone, and this was a point where we have swept upper liquidity. So potentially we may have actually seen a play potentially create itself here. I'm just double checking to see if those confluences would have aligned, because here we're seeing aggressive selling start to kick in. Aggressive selling start kicking right around 9:10. Not necessarily seeing buyer absorption. We're just seeing buyers start to not enter in as aggressively. Buyers stopped entering as aggressively. Sellers started entering much more aggressively. And volume, there's not as much volume here as well compared to this volume before. We're seeing less volume with more sellers, and more sellers are able to continue to push price downwards. If we had a large amount of buyers here which were unable to get rewarded, which would have gotten absorbed, which then pushed price down lower, and then we saw aggressive selling, that would have been a really nice area to enter the sells. But we did not see that as I would have liked. We're seeing aggressive selling start to come in, but what makes that say that aggressive buying cannot come in? And what makes that say that these passive buyers will not be able to stop these sellers from coming in? There's a lot of different factors that go into this, and just here I'm not seeing these factors align to my liking for me to actually take such short. This does show that this is an area of very high impact right around this area, because we see that large volume, large negative selling delta occur here, which seem to have hold here as well. I want to see what happened around 620. Not 620, 920. And then again, we don't see much here at all. Everything looks pretty typical to what I'm seeing. But I am seeing a key buy level right here around 6222.5-ish. So at 622.5, between 622, alright, let's put the lower bound in too, so 6221 to 6222.75. 6221 to 622.75. And look at that, those two barriers seem to have held very nicely for price. Oops. Let's see what happens here at these lows. Now here, longs potentially may have come in, because look, on a longer time frame span of things, right? And if we take a look here as well, where is the volume here? We're seeing volume at around this area in terms of the distribution. So if price was to come down, I would want it to come down relative to these levels and then reverse, because price is always attracted to volume. Where there's most of the volume, price will function its best, and that's why consolidation happens and reversals also happen at these high volume areas. But that's what we're seeing here at this volume that we've been seeing on the footprint chart, where these sellers tried to come in but failed, where we saw seller absorption previously. That is where we saw price reverse towards the upside once again. And looking at what I'm seeing here, oh wow, sellers came in very aggressively there. And then price started reversing once again. Honestly, would not enter there as well, I'm gonna be completely honest. Nothing is showing me actual absorption within price, and I want to see those passive participants actually get tapped into to show absorption. I do not like that. Unless we see a barrier that we can enter off of, I would not enter longs there. But if a barrier does show up, we can enter longs, but I'm not too inclined for the longs there. Let's keep going. Now we're just choppy consolidation, man. 930. Come back down towards that area. This area right here is holding very nicely. Right around 6220. So we know that 6220 is the area where price is unable to break through. Right there. That's the brick wall that couldn't allow sellers to move forward. But that brick wall is down there and price never tapped into it. Active buyers keep preventing sellers from getting there. Or potentially sellers do not want to get there. But we just see choppiness after that point. Let me go forward in time. And then let's see what happened with this buyer imbalance that just occurred. Okay, it just literally happened suddenly within the span of like 5 seconds. This buyer move up. And there's nothing absorbing buyers there, so it shouldn't prevent these buyers from going up. But as we see, that doesn't occur. We just see sellers start to come in. Not much volume here as well. Very little volume compared to usual. I like to stay within 10 to 12k plus, not minimum 9k, because we've seen 9k around 840. But here we're seeing 7 and 6k in volume within a 5-minute candle. It's pretty low volume. Yeah, let's just keep going forward. We go all the way to almost that 6 to 30 area. We get to that area. We tap into that 6 to 30 area. We see seller iceberg start to execute. Now price may want to head back down into that area. We don't get towards that area though. Alright, if I was to take a short, I would take a short here, because we're seeing large amounts of buyers get absorbed there. Buyers are not coming in after that, and aggressive selling is coming in. Selling is coming in very aggressively, but buyers do defend after that point of control area. Yeah, honestly, this is not the best market conditions that I would like, and I don't like how the book map looks here too, I'm gonna be honest. We just stay around that level, make a lot of volume, and then we head down. Nothing that I personally would have predicted. Come down. Now it's already 10 a.m. here. Ooh. Now here, this is what I'm seeing. My last hope to see if there was a trade today would be 10:15. 10:15 would be the only area. If we see a barrier there, and then we see this volume getting distributed there with heavy selling delta, we will enter longs there. But I really want to see a barrier there. Like, ooh, we do see a barrier there here at 622, 622. Oh, you've got to be kidding me, bro. Now we're seeing this passive selling come in. We broke above that area right around this candle. No absorption. We saw aggressive sellers came out, aggressive buying came in, and then after that we just continue to skyrocket towards the upside. So yeah, I'm gonna be completely honest, as you literally walked through it with me here today. This is another rare occasion where we see 0 setups that we could have made here today. Yesterday and today with the low news days, we saw 0 setups. And we literally worked through this live here with you guys. I monitored the book map and footprint literally from the start of market open to the end of New York session, the peak times of New York session at least, and we saw 0 setups. It was just honestly a up move, a choppy move, and then an up move again. And there was no point within any of that where this actually touched a key level on Bookmap for us to enter. For example, here, if you saw us tap into a barrier there and see absorption and make a reaction off of it, that would have been easy longs. Not easy, but easy because of our systems and processes that have been set up in place. And here, or even here, if we saw a level there that we're actually seeing absorption that we actually tap into, could have been easy longs there. Here, if we tapped into those levels and we actually saw absorption instead of aggressive selling just randomly start to come in, then we could have taken shorts. Now, I do want to see that 9:15 time again. Just want to see what was going up there, which was there. We saw price enter into that area, and then aggressive selling just start to come in after that. Aggressive selling came in. Price. Potential reversal shorts could have been made there, but I'm not too favorable of them. It's gonna be like a B or C grade setup, which I honestly do not like that much. With such bullish action that we've been seeing recently, going for a reversal is it's not too favorable, if I'm gonna say so myself. But yeah, today's one of these days that Orderflow did not give us a viable setup, where if someone traded, for example, SMC concepts, they likely would have been able to get a setup. And that's completely okay. We have to work with our edge that has been in the market, and we have to capitalize using that edge. We can't just be using random analysis to make our trade, so that's completely fine. Yeah, but honestly, I would have loved to see a setup there, potentially even here, or even there. Last thing I'll check, and then we'll conclude this video, is 9:45. 9:45. Yeah, we see buyers come in there, and selling starts to come in aggressively. Let's go back. Let's go back in time and see what exactly happened there and how fast that would have been. Yeah, we literally pushed above that level too. We see price action above that level, and then we start to come down. Then aggressive selling started to kick in. It's not that buyers essentially got absorbed, it's just that selling came in more significantly as compared to buyers at that point, pushing price back down to where volume was most heavy. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Honestly, would not have taken any trade. If you saw more clear absorption, definitely could have created, but we did not. I literally double checked it here with you guys as well. We looked through the whole session using Orderflow, Bookmap, and Footprint. Did analysis on ES and NQ, and we found not much for us to work with. I really would have liked it because we had this level there, and we also had overall long retracement type potential, but we did not see any of that. It's completely okay, that happens sometimes. But yeah, that's essentially all I have here for today. If you have any questions regarding the concepts or ideas I've mentioned in this video is definitely my longest video I've ever made, 15-minute video. But if you have any questions, feel free to join the Discord server for completely free. The link is in the description down below, and I truly believe that you may be able to gain a thing or two out of it. Everything's completely free, and yeah. Additionally, you may also leave a comment down below. I'll try to answer your questions there. Interact with the video if you liked it. And if you want to take advantage of Orderflow tools like this and start practicing using Orderflow today, even with a small delay, you need past data to actually start practicing. And with Addis, you can get that right now, literally right now. So if you want to start practicing and getting to integrate Orderflow into your strategy, use the links in the description down below, and you can get started today and start practicing, backtesting, and all of that. So I highly recommend you to check it out. But other than that, that's all I have here for today. And there's going to be a new series coming out tomorrow, Saturday. So I guess I'll see you guys then. Goodbye.